Ambassador Li Hyun walked into the massive council chamber, his boots echoing against the crystal floors. The room was huge, with seats arranged in circles that went up and up like a giant stadium. Hundreds of alien beings sat in those seats, all watching the center where a large blue light showed pictures from space. Hyun was still new to this. Earth had only joined the Galactic Council 2 years ago, and he was the first human ambassador. Most days he felt lost among all these strange creatures with their weird languages and customs. But today felt different. Today felt important. The blue light in the center grew brighter and showed a planet spinning slowly. It looked beautiful from far away, with white clouds and blue oceans. But as the image got closer, Hyun could see something was wrong. The land masses were covered in strange crystal formations that seemed to move and pulse like they were alive. Council members, a voice boomed through the chamber. It came from Vexter, the tall gray alien who led the council meetings. His translation device made his words sound robotic. "We are here to discuss Kepler-4 for to see, and the recent disasters that have happened there." Hyun leaned forward in his seat. He had heard whispers about this planet in the hallways, but nobody wanted to talk about it directly. Now he was about to learn why. The image changed to show a massive spaceship, sleek and silver, approaching the planet. 3 months ago, the Altarian Republic sent 200 of their best colonists to establish a mining operation on Kepler-4 for to see. The planet contains some of the richest mineral deposits we have ever discovered. Hyun's heart beat faster. Earth desperately needed new sources of rare minerals. Their home world was running out of everything: titanium, platinum, rare earth elements. Without new sources, human civilization would start falling apart within 50 years. This was the last transmission we received. Vextar continued, the chamber filled with crackling sounds and panicked voices, speaking in the musical language of the Altarians. Even through the translation, Hyun could hear the terror. The crystals are moving. They're eating through the hull. Everything metal is just dissolving. The radiation levels are off the charts. We need immediate evacuation. Then silence. The image showed twisted wreckage scattered across the planet's surface, half buried in growing crystal formations. Nothing was left of the silver ship except strange metal puddles that seemed to be feeding the crystals. The Centauri Federation tried next, Vextar said. They sent a military fleet with heavy shielding and plasma weapons. Another image flashed up, this time showing 5 large warships surrounding the planet. They lasted 6 days. No survivors. No wreckage. They simply vanished. A cold feeling crept up Hyun's spine. These weren't small exploration ships. These were massive vessels with the most advanced technology in the galaxy. Finally, the Dracorian Empire attempted to claim the world. Vexter's voice carried a hint of respect. As you know, the Dracorians are warriors. They fear nothing. They brought 20 ships and their most experienced fighters. The image showed the dragon-like Dracorians in their distinctive black armor, boarding heavily armed vessels. Hyun had met a few Dracorians before. They were tough as nails, and twice as stubborn. If they ran from something, it had to be truly terrifying. Half their fleet was lost in the first day. The survivors barely escaped to tell us what they found. The entire planet is alive with crystalline entities that consume any metal they touch. These creatures emit radiation that can kill most species within hours. The atmosphere itself has become toxic from their activities. Hyun studied the data, scrolling past on his personal display. The mineral wealth of Kepler-4 for to see was incredible. Enough tritanium to build 1,000 new starships. Enough rare elements to power Earth's industries for centuries. It would solve all of humanity's resource problems in one stroke. But it was guarded by something that had destroyed 3 different advanced civilizations. Therefore, Vextar announced, his voice carrying the weight of final judgment. The Galactic Council hereby classifies Kepler-442c as a Death World Class Omega. This is our highest danger rating. No member species is permitted to attempt colonization. or resource extraction. Any violation will result in immediate expulsion from the Council and complete trade sanctions. The voting was quick and unanimous. Every alien hand, claw, or tentacle raised in agreement. Heian raised his own hand, but his mind was racing as the other ambassadors began filing out of the chamber. Discussing other business, Heian remained in his seat. He stared at the slowly rotating planet on the display. Those crystal formations pulsed with an almost hypnotic rhythm. The radiation readings were deadly. Yes, the metal-eating creatures were terrifying, absolutely. But there had to be a way. Humans had survived ice ages and plagues. They had learned to live in the deepest oceans and the frozen wastes of Antarctica. They had built cities in radioactive wastelands and thrived in places other species considered uninhabitable. Maybe the problem wasn't the planet. Maybe the problem was how everyone else had tried to approach it. Hyun quietly downloaded all the available data about Kepler-4 to see to his personal files. If the Council said it was impossible, then perhaps it was time for humanity to prove them wrong. After all, humans had always been good at making homes in impossible places. Captain Park Jin stood on the observation deck of the space station orbiting Earth, watching the final preparations below. 12 ships floated in the darkness, but they looked nothing like the sleek metal vessels that usually carried humans. Between the stars, these ships were different, strange. Their hulls seemed to shift and breathe like living things. "The bioarmor is holding steady," reported First Officer Kim Nari as she joined Jin at the window. Dr. Chen's team really outdid themselves this time. Jin nodded, still amazed at what the scientists had created. Instead of metal hulls, the ships were covered in a thick layer of specially grown bacteria that could absorb radiation. The walls inside were made from hardened coral that had been modified to grow in space. Even the computers were different. Living neural networks grown from human brain cells, mixed with fungus. It had taken 3 years of secret research, hidden from the Galactic Council in underground labs on the dark side of the moon. Earth's government had poured everything into this project. If it failed, humanity would have no choice but to slowly die as their home world ran out of resources. "Captain," came a voice from behind them. Navigator Yunte approached, holding a data pad. "The volunteer roster is complete. 8 people ready to leave everything behind." Jin took the pad and scrolled through the names. These weren't ordinary colonists. Dr. Lee Su from the Antarctic Research Station, who had spent 15 years living in temperatures that would kill most people in minutes. Miner Kim Woo from the Luna colonies, who had worked for decades in the deepest tunnels where radiation leaked through the rock. Engineer Park Min from the Chernobyl cleanup crews, who had spent her life working with materials so dangerous that most humans couldn't even be in the same room. "They know this might be a one-way trip?" Jin asked. "Every single one volunteered anyway," Tae replied. "They understand what Earth is facing. No new resources means no future for our children." Jin looked back at the ships. Each one carried families, scientists, engineers, doctors, and farmers. People who had spent their lives learning to survive in places where survival seemed impossible. If anyone could make a home on a world that had killed 3 alien civilizations, it would be these people. Captain Nari said quietly, "The Council is going to see this as an act of war. When they find out we ignored their ban." "Only if we fail," Jin replied. "If we succeed, they'll have to accept that we found a way to make the impossible possible." 3 months later, the small fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. Jin stood on the bridge of the lead ship, New Seoul, watching their destination grow larger on the main screen. The planet looked beautiful from a distance, covered in swirling white clouds and blue oceans. But as they got closer, the danger became clear. The continents were covered in massive crystal formations that pulsed with their own inner light. Some of the crystals were as tall as mountains, reaching up through the atmosphere like giant spears. Between them, smaller formations moved and shifted, creating patterns that hurt to look at for too long. "Radiation readings are off the charts," reported Chief Engineer Cho Min from his station. "If we were in a normal ship, we'd all be dead already. But their bioships were holding. The bacteria coating absorbed the deadly radiation and converted it into nutrients for the living hull. The coral walls filtered the air and water, keeping the environment inside safe for human life." There, Jin pointed at a valley between two smaller crystal formations. "That spot has lower radiation levels and room for landing sites." As they approached the planet's surface, more details became visible. The crystals weren't just sitting there, they were moving. Slowly, but definitely moving. Growing and shrinking, and reaching toward each other like they were communicating. "Captain," came the voice of xenobiologist Dr. Kang Yoon over the communication system. "I'm picking up electromagnetic patterns from the surface. These aren't just crystals. They're producing organized signals." "You mean they're alive?" "More than that. They're talking to each other." Jin felt a chill run down her spine. The previous expeditions had seen these formations as obstacles to overcome or enemies to fight. But what if they were something else entirely? The landing was rough, but successful. 8,000 humans stepped out of their bioships onto a world that the galaxy had declared uninhabitable. The air was thick with radiation, but their modified suits protected them. The ground beneath their feet hummed with energy from the crystal formations all around them. "Home sweet home," muttered Chief Engineer Cho as he began setting up the first shelter. It was made from the same living coral as their ship hulls, designed to grow and adapt to whatever the planet threw at them. Jin looked around at her people as they began the work of building humanity's most impossible colony. They had traveled farther from Earth than any humans before them, to a place where 3 advanced alien civilizations had failed and died. But humans had always been good at surviving in places where survival seemed impossible. Today, they would find out if that was enough. The attack came at sunrise on their 3rd day. Colonist Han Sol was checking the water purification system when the ground beneath him started to shake. At first he thought it was just another planet quake. This world had lots of them. Then he saw the crystals moving. Long, sharp spears of crystal shot up from the earth all around. Landing Site Alpha. They pierced through the metal water tanks like they were made of paper. Han watched in horror as the steel pipes began to melt and dissolve, turning into silver liquid that flowed toward the crystal formations. "Emergency alert." Captain Park Jin's voice crackled over the radio. "All personnel to emergency positions. We're under attack." Han ran toward the main shelter, but more crystal spears erupted in his path. One of them shot up right next to him, so close he could feel the heat coming off it. The crystal was beautiful in a terrifying way, glowing with inner light and making a low humming sound, but it wasn't trying to hurt him. It was eating the metal fence behind him. "Wait," Han shouted into his radio. "They're not attacking us? They're attacking our metal." Across the camp, other colonists were making the same discovery. The crystals ignored humans completely, but any piece of metal equipment was being consumed. Pipes, tools, support beams, everything was melting into silver puddles that fed the growing formations. Dr. Kang Yoon ran toward the communications center, her scientific equipment bouncing in her backpack. She had been studying the electromagnetic patterns coming from the crystals for days, and now she had a theory. "Jin," she called to the captain, "I need to try something." "Whatever it is, do it fast," Jin replied. "We're losing all our equipment." Kang reached the biospeakers they had set up to communicate with the ship in orbit, but instead of calling for help, she started playing the sounds she had recorded from the crystals. Low, musical tones that seemed to make the air itself vibrate. The crystal formations around the camp suddenly stopped growing. The humming sound changed, becoming more complex, like a song with many voices. The crystals pulsed with different colors, now blues and greens instead of angry reds. "They're responding," Kong shouted excitedly. "They're trying to communicate." Over the next several hours, a strange conversation began. Kong would play a sequence of tones, and the crystals would respond with their own music. Slowly, patterns emerged. The formations weren't just alive, they were intelligent. Settlement leader. Baywan gathered the senior staff in the main bioshelter that evening. The living coral walls glowed softly, providing light without any metal components that might attract the crystals. "We need to make a decision," one said. "We can try to fight these creatures and probably end up like the previous expeditions. Or we can try something different." "What are you suggesting?" asked Chief Engineer Cho Min. "We adapt. Completely." One looked around the room. No more metal. No more traditional technology. "We learn to live the way this planet wants us to live." It was a radical idea. Humans had used metal for thousands of years. Their entire civilization was built on it. But the next morning, they began the Great Transformation. Young engineer Li Da had an idea. Instead of metal tools, she started growing tools from the same coral material as their shelters. The living rock could be shaped while it was soft, then hardened into any form they needed. Hammers, saws, containers, all grown instead of manufactured. Farmer O. Jun discovered that certain plants from Earth could be modified to thrive in the planet's radioactive soil. With help from the ship's biolab, he created new crops that actually absorbed radiation and converted it into nutrients. The plants glowed softly at night, creating fields of living light. The breakthrough came 2 weeks later, when Li Da was working near one of the crystal formations. She had been trying to repair a water pump using only biomaterials when the crystal began to pulse in rhythm with her work. Curious, she placed her hand on its surface. Images flooded her mind. Not words, but pure understanding. The crystals weren't destroyers, they were healers. For millions of years, they had been cleaning the planet's soil and water, breaking down toxic metals that had accumulated in the rocks. The previous alien expeditions hadn't been attacked. They had been processed, their metal ships identified as pollution that needed to be removed. "They think we're here to help," DA explained to the others that evening. "The metals we brought looked like contamination to them, but when they see us using living materials, working with the planet instead of against it, they understand we're different." Colony Leader 1 made the announcement that would change everything. "We're not conquerors here. We're partners in healing a wounded world." The transformation accelerated. Within a month, the human settlement looked nothing like a traditional colony. Buildings grew from living coral that breathed with the planet's rhythms. Gardens flourished in soil cleaned by crystal formations. Water flowed through biological tubes that purified themselves, and the crystals helped. They guided the humans to the best locations for their biobuildings. They cleaned radiation from the areas where children played. They even began to sing at sunset, filling the valley with harmonious music that helped the humans sleep. Han Sol stood in the center of New Haven, as they had named their settlement, watching children play among the crystal gardens. 3 months ago, this had been declared the most dangerous place in the galaxy. Now it felt like home. 2 years had passed since the humans first landed on Kepler 442c, and the settlement of New Haven had grown beyond anyone's wildest dreams. Agricultural specialist Oh Jun walked through the protein farms, amazed at what they had built together with the planet itself. The farms didn't look like anything from Earth. Instead of metal buildings and machines, living structures grew from the ground like giant mushrooms. Their walls breathed slowly, filtering the air and adjusting the temperature inside. Pools of glowing algae stretched as far as O could see, each one producing more food than the old Earth farms ever could. "The yield numbers are incredible," O told Colony Director Kim Hae over his biocommunicator. We're producing 30% more food than last quarter. The crystals are actually helping our crops grow better. It was true. The crystal formations, that had once seemed so dangerous, were now partners in everything the humans did. They broke down harmful metals in the soil, purified the water, and even provided energy for the living buildings. The resonants, as the humans now called them, were master gardeners who had been taking care of this planet for millions of years. Kim Hay stood on the observation platform of the Central Growth Tower, looking out over their incredible city. New Haven spread across the valley like a living organism. Coral-like buildings spiraled up toward the sky, their surfaces covered in gardens and glowing with soft bioluminescent light. Streams of clean water flowed between the structures, carrying nutrients to every part of the settlement. It was beautiful, but more than that, it was alive. The entire city breathed and grew and adapted to what its people needed. "Director," came the voice of Chief Scientist Rusan from below. "You need to see what's happening in the engineering district." Hay climbed down through the hollow center of the tower, using the natural spiral ramps that had grown there. The building knew she was coming and created handholds exactly where she needed them. After 2 years, she still found it amazing how the biostructures could read human intentions and respond. In the engineering district, something wonderful was happening. Human technicians worked side by side with resonant entities, their crystalline bodies channeling the planet's natural energy into the biomechanical systems. What had once been seen as monsters were now recognized as brilliant engineers who understood the planet better than any human ever could. Engineer Li Da knelt beside a large resonant, her hands pressed against its crystal surface. Through the connection, she could feel the flow of energy through the planet's entire ecosystem. The resonant was showing her how to redirect a stream to bring more water to the southern farms. "It's not just communication anymore," DA explained to Director Hay. "They're teaching us, showing us how the planet really works, how to work with it instead of fighting it." Hay watched as another resonant helped a human team install a new bioprocessor that would clean wastewater. The crystal being's body glowed brighter as it channeled energy into the living machine, bringing it to life. In minutes, what would have taken days with traditional technology was complete. The children of New Haven had grown up with this miracle as normal life. Young Kim Tae ran through the crystal gardens with his friends, playing hide-and-seek among the formations that sang gentle melodies when touched. The resonants had learned to recognize human children and would create safe playing spaces for them, with soft crystal formations that wouldn't hurt if someone fell. "Look at this," called out Dr. Parkman from the research center. She had been studying the materials the biobuildings produced. "The coral walls are stronger than any metal we know, but they weigh almost nothing, and they repair themselves when damaged." It was true. The living buildings could heal cuts and cracks, just like human skin healing from a wound. They could also grow new rooms or change their shape when the people inside needed something different. A family expecting a new baby would find their home growing a nursery. A workshop that needed more space would simply expand. The humans had learned to grow their tools as well. Farmer Ochan's harvesting equipment was made from shaped bone coral that was harder than steel but would dissolve safely back into the soil when it wasn't needed anymore. Dr. Kong Yoon's medical instruments grew fresh for each patient, perfectly clean and designed for exactly what she needed to do. "We don't mine anymore," explained Chief Engineer Cho Min to a group of visiting researchers from the ship. "We garden. The resonants show us where useful materials form naturally, and we harvest them without damaging the ecosystem." The planet provided everything they needed. Bioluminescent organisms created light without electricity. Living water systems cleaned and moved liquid wherever it was needed. The coral buildings absorbed carbon from the air and produced oxygen, making the atmosphere cleaner than when the humans had arrived. At sunset, the entire settlement would fill with music. The resonants would sing together, their harmonic frequencies creating symphonies that helped the humans relax after a day of work. Children would fall asleep to lullabies sung by crystal formations outside their windows. Colony Director Kim Hay stood in the main plaza that evening, surrounded by the impossible city her people had built. No metal, no pollution, no destruction. Just life working with life, creating something more beautiful than either humans or resonance could have built alone. The council called this place a death world, she said to Chief Scientist Ru-sun, who had joined her to watch the sunset concert. They were wrong, Sun replied, watching a group of human children learn mathematics from a patient resonant teacher. This isn't a death world. It's a life world. We just had to learn how to live. Admiral Vexener stood on the bridge of the Galactic Council inspection ship, staring at his sensor readings in complete disbelief. His 4 eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of confusion in his species. The data made no sense. Run the scans again, he ordered his navigation officer. Sir, I've run them 5 times. The readings are accurate. The officer's voice trembled slightly. There are over 50,000 life signs on the surface of Kepler-4 for to see. Vexener had commanded inspection fleets for over 30 years. He had seen civilizations rise and fall, witnessed the aftermath of wars that destroyed entire star systems, but he had never seen anything like this. The planet that had killed 3 different expeditions was now showing signs of a thriving settlement. Impossible, muttered Council Leader Vexstar, his gray skin turning pale. The radiation alone should have killed them all within days. As their shuttle descended through the atmosphere, the crew pressed against the windows to see what the humans had built. What they saw left them speechless. The landscape below looked like something from a dream. Cities made of living coral stretched across the valleys, glowing with soft bioluminescent light. Gardens and farms spread between crystal formations that pulsed with rainbow colors. It's beautiful, whispered the pilot, forgetting protocol in his amazement. The shuttle landed at what appeared to be a spaceport, but it was unlike anything in the galaxy. The landing pad was grown from living rock that adjusted its shape too perfectly, fit their ship. Streams of clean water flowed around the edges, feeding gardens that sparkled with morning dew. Colony Director Kim Hay walked toward them across the biostone surface. She wore simple clothes made from plant fibers that seemed to shimmer in the light. Beside her walked something that made the council delegation freeze in terror, a resonant entity, its crystalline body towering over the human woman. But the creature wasn't threatening. It moved with gentle grace, and when it spoke through the bioacoustic translators, its voice was warm and musical. Welcome to our home, the resonance sang. Your people visit after long silence. We hope you find peace here. Admiral Vexener's hand instinctively moved toward his weapon, but Director Hay raised her palm in a calming gesture. Please don't be afraid, she said with a smile. This is Song of Deep Waters, one of our partners here. The resonants have been helping us build this settlement for 2 years now. Helping, Vexstar's voice cracked. These creatures destroyed 3 expeditions. No, Hay said gently. They were protecting their world from what they saw as metal pollution. Once we learned to work with biological materials, instead of against the planet's ecosystem, everything changed. The tour that followed amazed the council delegation beyond words. They walked through hospitals where living walls produced medicine on demand. They saw schools where resonant teachers helped human children learn by showing them the mathematical patterns hidden in crystal formations. They visited factories that grew materials stronger than any known alloy, all without producing a single drop of waste. In the agricultural district, they met Farmer Oh-jun, who explained how the planet's radiation was actually helpful when properly channeled. His crops glowed with health, producing more nutrition than anything grown on traditional farming worlds. The radiation doesn't hurt us anymore, Oh said, showing them plants that absorbed the energy and converted it into vitamins. Our biosuits protect us, and the resonants help clean the air and soil. We're actually healthier here than most humans are on Earth. But the most incredible sight was the central plaza, where thousands of humans and residents gathered each evening. Children played games with crystal entities that created safe, soft formations for them to climb on. Adults worked with resonant partners on projects that seemed to blur the line between technology and art. Musicians performed concerts, where human voices blended with the harmonic frequencies of the crystal beings. "They have done the impossible," Vexter admitted to Admiral Vexener, as they watched a group of human engineers working with a resonant to grow a new water treatment facility. "They have made paradise from perdition." Director Hay joined them on the observation platform overlooking the city. The sun was setting, and the entire settlement began to glow with bioluminescent light. The resonants started their evening song, and the crystal formations throughout the valley joined in, creating a symphony that seemed to make the very air dance. "You have achieved something we thought was impossible," Admiral Vexner said to her. "How did you know it would work?" Hay smiled, placing her hand on a nearby crystal formation that pulsed gently at her touch. "We didn't know. We just learned that some places aren't meant to be conquered. They're meant to be joined." A young resonant approached the group, its smaller size indicating it was still learning. Through the translators, it asked, "Will more of your people come to learn the Song of Harmony?" "Yes," Hay replied. "I think they will." 6 months later, the Galactic Council officially lifted the quarantine on Kepler-4 for to see, but by then, news of the human settlement had spread throughout the galaxy. 3 more Death World colonies had already launched, each crewed by humans, who understood that the most dangerous places in the universe sometimes held the greatest possibilities. The resonance. Harmonic songs now carried messages between worlds, creating a communication network that spanned star systems. And humanity's greatest discovery wasn't new technology or vast mineral wealth. It was a new way of belonging to the universe, working with life instead of fighting against it.